Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
To Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Where does LSU rank in terms of newly acquired talent on the football field for 2025? We'll talk about that a little bit later. And what veteran quarterbacks make some sense for the Saints now that they've got a roster spot available, and a lot of youth at the quarterback position. We'll do that as well here as we navigate hour number 2. I want to talk some SEC baseball at the top here, and then we'll get into the football discussion for the rest of the hour. Just some crazy stuff over the weekend in the Southeastern Conference. I guess I have to start in College Station. Does that sound correct?
You have to.
I'll just say this. I can't explain that. I cannot explain it. Like, A&M has had some warts this year. Yes, no question. But you're talking about a team that for 5 weeks, this is not hyperbole. For 5 weeks, Texas A&M has played like a top 15 baseball team. For 5 weeks. That's half the season. Missouri, for 8 weeks, had not won a league game. For 12 weeks, had played horrendously. And Texas A&M gets a 6-1 lead in the first game of the series, and then just vomits. Projectile Aggie vomit. Give up a couple hits, give up a couple runs. Then you go to the ninth with a 3-1 lead. You give up a 6 spot in the ninth. And at that point, you're shocked because you lose the game. You lose the game to Missouri. They were 0-24. You lose the game. Okay. You have to regroup and realize that you've put yourself in position to still go ahead, win the next 2, and then go to Athens with your season intact. Not only did they not do that, they got appreciably worse as the weekend went on. They got 2 hits in the second game and then got beat by 9 in the third game. Missouri, who had not won a league game all year, had been run ruled 11 times, sweeps Texas A&M. Not a lot of bubbles in Bluebell over the weekend. And A&M's RPI went from in the low 30s to nearly 60. They almost dropped 30 points in the RPI. Now they have to go sweep Georgia. Well, they will become the first number 1 team in the preseason to miss the NCAA tournament since the early 90s. Arizona State was the last team to do it. And they'll have a coaching search on their hands because they made a hire for all the wrong reasons. Texas A&M, which has never had any success in anything ever, had success in baseball in the last 4 years. They had a Final Four appearance, and then they had a national runner-up. And that's the best anyone in Aggie Maroon has ever seen in anything, unless you want to count their women's basketball championship. But as far as football, basketball, baseball, the national runner-up is the greatest thing A&M has ever done in collegiate athletics in anyone's lifetime who's still around. And at that point, they got panicked because their coach left for their rival, and they were looking at Jace Laviolette and Gavin Grahovec and Hayden Schott, and they were looking at Ryan Prager, Justin Lampkin, and they're going, well, we have to, this is the best thing we've ever had. We have to keep this. And if we hire someone else, they might leave. And so they panicked. And they hired someone who was completely unqualified for the job, and he has done a terrible job. And they're going to have to get a new coach. Texas A&M is unquestionably a top 10 job in college baseball. Unquestionably. And they didn't even conduct a coaching search because they were panicked that 5 guys might transfer. And this is what they get for that. I mean, a stunning development in College Station over the weekend. I was listening to Texags radio this morning, as I'm prone to do when things don't go well. And Billy Lucci said it was the worst sporting result he's seen since covering Texas A&M. He put it in the conversation with the football team losing to Appalachian State a few years ago with Jimbo, and with Oklahoma being up 77-0 on Texas A&M in football in the third quarter. Those are the two that he brought forth with this weekend's results. Their RPI almost dropped a 30 burger. Wild stuff in College Station. But there was more that went on in SEC baseball over the weekend. So Auburn and South Carolina played in a weekend series on the Plains, and there were some issues with the weather, and they were trying to move things around and make sure they got games played, and they did get them played. South Carolina's pitching staff, keep in mind, fresh off of a doubleheader against Florida where they lost by a combined score of 30-3. They go to Auburn, they lose 24-2 on Thursday night, and then come back in the last 2 weekends and give up 11-11 and lose 11-10 and 11-3. I don't even think I could do this math. Let me try. That's 30. That's 54, 65, 76 runs they've allowed in their last 5 games. 76 runs South Carolina has allowed. And Auburn's a good team for sure. They're bordering on a top 8 right now. I think they're probably, if they play well this weekend, they will get a top 8. But they're not an offensive juggernaut. And they scored 24, 11, and 11 on South Carolina. That's the pitching staff LSU is headed to play over the weekend. Tennessee played Vanderbilt over the weekend in Knoxville. And Tennessee had lost 3 straight home series. We can go ahead and make that 4 because they lost the rubber game yesterday and then got into a fight on the field after the game with Vanderbilt. And I got asked on radio 2 weeks ago, why don't you like Tony Vitello? And I said, first of all, I don't know Tony Vitello. This is not a personal thing with him. This is just my perception of him as a baseball coach. Over the last 4 seasons, I've watched him sling a bat towards another dugout, chest bump an official, get suspended for tampering in the transfer portal, and his team has a tendency to lose its cool. So it's just not a very becoming persona. And the other part of it is they're good, and I don't like that either. So you mix all that together. I'm not a big Tony Vitello fan. But his teams do this more than anyone else in the league. I mean, he got in a screaming match with Dave Van Horn a few years ago. They worked together previously. And Tennessee doesn't handle losing very well. You saw in the Super, their best player gets ejected and suspended for a game against Notre Dame. And then they get in a fight last night. And on top of the fact they're not handling themselves very well, they're not playing worth a flip either. There's a logjam towards the top of the SEC with teams trying to get a top 8 seed. Tennessee's out right now. Tennessee is out right now. They've lost 4 of 5 series. They've lost 4 in a row at home. And they can still host if they go to Fayetteville and play really well over the weekend, which they're very capable of doing. But they're probably going to have to travel, and they may have to travel for a regional. Now, that's a 2-fee that nobody wants to deal with, and LSU won't have that option. But Tennessee just not playing well, not getting big hits. Their defense has let them down. Outside of Liam Doyle, who's just been phenomenal, they got warts. And they showed up over the weekend. Vanderbilt, meanwhile, 16-11 in SEC play with an RPI of 3. That is absolutely a top 8 resume. Keep in mind, you look at the SEC standings, like LSU 17-10, so you're in 3rd place in the SEC, which is awesome. But you don't really want to get into a resume off with Auburn and Vanderbilt because Auburn, though they're a game behind you in the stands, swept you, has more quad 1 wins than you, and a better RPI and strength of schedule. Vanderbilt, though they're a game behind you in the SEC standings, has more quad 1 wins, better RPI, better strength of schedule, better non-conference strength of schedule. So there are some teams that, because when you wake up today and you're like, LSU's number one in the nation in both polls. You wake up today and you say LSU's got 17 league wins, like you're a slam dunk for a top 8. There are some teams ahead of you in the pecking order purely on metrics in the SEC. Texas is that way. Vanderbilt is that way. Auburn is that way. Georgia's close. Their RPI is 1. So there's still some work to be done for LSU because a lot of the teams that are doing some work in the SEC may be a tad ahead of you. Here's another team to look out for because everybody's paying attention to like what Texas A&M was doing. Florida, on the other hand, was 1-11 in the league through 4 weeks. 1-11. Florida might host a regional. They were 1-11. They might host a regional. They go to Texas. They win 2 out of 3. You look up, they're now 13-14 in league play, which means they're 12-3 in their last 15. 12-3. And they got Alabama in Gainesville this weekend. And if Florida sweeps Alabama to go to 16-14 in the SEC, they'll have an RPI in the top 10. They will host a regional. From 1-11, Florida will host a regional. That's crazy. And this is now not like an isolated incident. You saw Texas A&M dig themselves all the way out of the ashes and then kill themselves again against Missouri. But Florida's done it. LSU did it last year. Ole Miss did it 2 years ago. Somebody who has just a hellacious first 5 weekends, catches fire late. And it's because even outside of Missouri, who's not any good, and South Carolina is not any good, but generally speaking, there are going to be 13 or 14 teams in the SEC that are just damn good. And that's why you can't take every loss so rough in the league because everybody goes through it. Everybody does. Georgia's been swept twice this year. Vanderbilt has been swept. Arkansas did it to them. Texas has now lost 5 of 6 in league play and lost 2 weekends in a row. Arkansas has lost 4 of 5 series. 4 or 5. LSU had its issues on the Plains, and like everybody around the league has issues because every weekend, and it sounds like a coach's cliche, it sounds like I'm carrying the water for the league. It's just true. And when Ole Miss is the last team in the field 3 years ago and wins a national championship, and Florida is the last team in the field last year and gets to the Final Four, you get a sense of just how real this is. And it's hard to have that conversation when you're in the middle of it because you take every win as a massive deal and take every loss as such a gutting defeat. But everybody's going through it for 10 weeks. 10 weeks you got to go through this. And when you can finally come out for air on the other side, it's postseason time and the teams you're playing just aren't as talented. Doesn't guarantee you a win, but SEC teams are having a lot of success in postseason play. LSU's done a really nice job through 9 weeks of keeping its head above water. 17-10 is an awesome place to be in. And if they can get 2 more wins, you can write national seed in Sharpie, and that's really all we're here for in the first 56 games anyway. Then you got to turn it on for real when the lights come on. But a wild weekend in the Southeastern Conference. Bad weather, weird game times. LSU's playing until 1 in the morning. Georgia and Arkansas are playing late into the day on Sunday. So were Tennessee and Vanderbilt because they had a whole day full of rain. There was Georgia and Auburn, I think, or Ole Miss and Mississippi State had a deal where they were just going to take Saturday off and play 1 early on Friday and then 2 on Sunday. And the league office came back and said, we can't just take the day off. You got to try to play. And just a weird weekend overall there where Mississippi State wins the series and they are likely to be an NCAA tournament team even though they fired their coach. So it's just it's a crazy conference. It's wild every single week. And got 1 more week to go. They'll crank things up on Thursday. It'll be LSU in South Carolina from Columbia. And that'll be it. And they'll head to Hoover. Hopefully LSU will have their bags settled in Baton Rouge for the remainder of the postseason if you can go ahead and get a couple of wins there. So that's your baseball talk for the day. I wanted to touch on that around the Southeastern Conference. Let's now get back into football. Where does LSU rank as far as the newcomers that are coming in? Pretty high, says ESPN.com. We'll tell you where next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. A lot of times we talk about renovations in here. You just want something that looks newer and fresher. And David Vaughn and his team are happy to do that. I talk about tubs and showers. They do vanities as well that look phenomenal. You can see pictures of their great website at onebathandclosets.com. But it's not just the renovations because you want something that looks updated. Sometimes you've just got things that don't work anymore. If you've got an older home and your shower just doesn't quite work the way that it needs to, maybe it doesn't work at all, don't just get the handyman from down the street to come over and give him a little cash. Get a licensed, bonded, insured professional to come in and put in that new shower, put in that new tub to handle that hardware. David Vaughn and his team have been at this 30 years. They know what they're doing. Get them involved instead of just some random guy down the street. It's One Bath and Closets. Find pictures of their great work and some testimonials from their satisfied clients online at onebathandclosets.com. It's onebathandclosets.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
All your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products. Shout out Trey Beal and the team over there. They have certainly helped us with our printing, scanning, copying over here at Guarantee Media. And if you look on YouTube and you see my desk any day of the week, you're going to see tons of stuff that's been printed out from the printers over there. Always working great, and they know the needs of every single vertical market. So no matter what you do, whether you're in healthcare, education, banking, law, media company like us, whatever it may be, you're talking about a guy in Trey Beal and Gulf Coast Office Products that have clients that do what you do, and they know what your needs are. And Trey gets to talking about it. He's an expert, let me just tell you. And he gets to call. It's over my head, but I don't make the calls over here about what we do and don't need. He knows. So if you're looking for printing, scanning, copying help, want to make sure that you're running smoothly, and there's dollars and cents that are involved here in terms of the amount of copies you make and how hard your printer, scanner, copier has to work to make them. Trey Beal can certainly help you out with that. So it's Gulf Coast Office Products. Check them out online, gcopnet.com, gcopnet.com. Story up on ESPN.com earlier today that caught my attention. College football's top 2025 newcomer classes. This used to be a freshman ranking, right? You just look at the recruiting rankings and see what freshmen were going to come in and potentially make an impact. And I actually talked a little bit about that last week, where I don't think there's going to be a huge impact from the freshman class with LSU. I pinpointed a couple of guys, DJ Pickett and Harlan Berry, who I certainly think have a chance to play. And then you look at potentially on the offensive line, maybe Carius Kern gets some snaps, but it doesn't feel like a freshman class is going to be leaned on very heavily. Why? Because you went and signed, 18 transfers now? And you expect to have 14 starters from that transfer class, 13, 12 starters from that transfer class. That's a big deal. So the question is, okay, well, where does that rank amongst folks in college football? And the list was put out by Craig Halbert and Billy Tucker over to ESPN. They have Oregon ranked number 1 as far as newcomers. They got DeCorian Moore highlighted, who LSU fans certainly are aware of. But you look at some of the guys that they brought in as transfers, and one of the names that jumps off the page to me is Bear Alexander, because he's been everywhere, but he's now up there at Oregon. You talk about Mekhi Hughes, who is a big-time running back. And they've got a number of guys that should impact. I don't think that's super interesting to LSU fans, but the next name on the list here is LSU at number 2, second best crop of talent coming in America. They mentioned the top recruits, DJ Pickett, Carius Kern, Solomon Thomas on the offensive line, as well as Harlan Berry. And then top transfers, they go Berrien Brown, Nick Anderson, Bauer Sharp, Braylon Moore, Josh Thompson, Michael Van Buren, Jack Pyburn, Patrick Payton, Mansour Delane, Tamarcus Cooley, Jakeem Jackson, AJ Halsey. You get the point. There's a lot of guys who were expected to make an impact. And what I did when I looked at that list of the top transfers, I wanted to look at it and go, okay, how many starters do I personally think, as we sit here in mid-May, come from that list? Just the list that ESPN put out there. It's not a comprehensive list, but from that list, how many are starters? I would suggest between Berrien Brown and Nick Anderson, that's 1. Because I think Chris Hilton and I think Aaron Anderson are starters for you out wide. So between Berrien Brown and Nick Anderson, that's 1. Both guys should have a big impact, but if you're looking at starters, let's take it literally, I think that's 1. Bauer Sharp, he's a starter if you want that position on the field in the first snap. He's certainly going to be out there early and often. So I would count him as a starter. Braylon Moore, yes. Josh Thompson, yes. Michael Van Buren, no. Jack Pyburn, yes. Patrick Payton, to me, yes. I think those two guys, maybe Jamari Butler, maybe Gabe Relaford. I'm not guaranteeing it, but I think both those guys will start. So that's a total of 6. Mansour Lane, yes. TaMarcus Cooley, yes. Jakeem Jackson is a maybe for me. AJ Halsey is a yes. That is 9 starters from that list. And one of those guys that's not a starter is a quarterback who started, obviously, last year for Mississippi State. So that's a massive number. We know that's going to be a massive number. And the question is, how does that mesh? And they had a spring to go through some things. Certainly not in the case of AJ Halsey, but the rest of those guys were here in the spring. Thompson for half of it. And then you got summer, and then you got fall camp to get it ready. And you have to be ready to go from the start. And that's the thing about the combination of this transfer portal class, which we think so highly of, and the schedule having Clemson right out of the chute. There's not really any time to work out kinks or get guys gelled or work on communication or deal with any sort of adversity. It's just, here's Clemson, go. And I think that there's a mix of emotions for me between it's great that you brought in all this talent, and then the other side of it is you're asking a lot of new guys to do a lot of new things together for the first time, and they got to be ready to go from jump. And in marrying those two thoughts could be the difference in making the playoff and missing it, because it's a fine line. It's a razor's edge. We just did a segment on college baseball, and you're talking about teams that had a month and a half of bad play that have resurrected themselves. If you have 4 quarters of bad play the first week of the season, you're already swimming upstream. So it's such a positive and then a potential issue at the same time. And trust me, I would rather be on this list than not. Any list you put together that suggests that there's only one team in the country that brought in better talent than you, that's a great list to be on. I think it's absolutely a positive for LSU. I agree with the philosophy. I've enjoyed the execution. I think the roster looks really good. But you can't escape just a reasonable question of it's a lot of new guys. Are they going to be ready to go the first week of the season? Because you could argue LSU wasn't ready to go the first game of the season in 22, wasn't ready to go the first game of the season in 23, wasn't ready to go the first game of the season in 24. You could make that argument. A lot of adverse situations in 2022. I don't have a great explanation for 2023 other than that Florida State was really good. And then last year, I think LSU had a better football team than USC. I do. They lost the game. You just can't afford to keep getting off to these starts. So it's up to the coaching staff, which does have a ton of continuity this time around, to get this group of new players up to speed and ready to go. You'd rather be on a talented list than not. But does it come together? In time. You're already on the clock. So there's the list continues with Auburn at 3, Texas at 4, Texas Tech spent a bunch of money. They're at number 5, Ole Miss at 6. I was looking to see if the 2 LSU transfers made the top transfer list. They did. Deshaun Womack was number 1 on that list. Sage Ryan was number 3 on that list. I'll just caution the folks at Oxford a little bit because I don't know if those are the 2 guys that are going to put them over the top. But Ohio State's at number 7, Miami number 8, Michigan number 9, and then Missouri at number 10. So that's a look. You can check it out at ESPN.com. The article at the top says the college football's top 2025 newcomer class. LSU comes in just behind Oregon at number 2 on that list. Big time transfer class for the Tigers. All right, let's step aside. We've got 30 minutes left to go here on this Monday. When we come back, chat a little bit about veteran quarterbacks that Saints could potentially target and whether or not that makes a lot of sense. We'll do that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every single vehicle, all of them, every single model won an IIHA Top Safety Pick Award. Some of them won Top Safety Pick Plus. You can be assured when you get behind the wheel of a Genesis that you're in one of the safest vehicles on the road. Every single model, as I mentioned, starts with that same safety foundation. Now, some of them build on it, but they don't cut corners at Genesis. When you get behind the wheel, like, you'll feel the style, you'll feel the comfort. The brand ambassadors will show you all the features that the vehicles have. You can't get a sense for safety just by taking a test drive. But when you pay attention to the folks that do evaluate vehicles year over year for safety, you understand why Genesis has the reputation that it does. Get on by and see them. They're at Airline at Piku, across from Women's Hospital. Gorgeous showroom, incredible selection on the lot. It's a phenomenal brand. And a lot of folks have not been behind the wheel because it's fairly new to town. Go check them out. Airline at Piku, genesisofbatonrouge.com. genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Big news over the weekend in Saints land. Derek Carr has announced his retirement from the NFL. That does a couple things for New Orleans. One, it necessitates the need for another quarterback because right now you've got Tyler Shough, Spencer Rattler, and Jake Haener. That's probably not the quarterback room that you're going to enter the 2025 season with. That's just a lot of youth. You need somebody under that roof with some experience. The other piece of it is the salary cap deal, and Ross Jackson's got a great piece up at LouisianaSports.net right now about that, and maybe we'll get into that some tomorrow. But I do want to talk about the veteran quarterback spot now because you need somebody in that role. My preference is that this is a backup veteran. I don't need the Saints playing a season with a backup quarterback in the twilight of his career just to try to win as many games as possible. Like, I understand that sounds counterintuitive, but it's not. You need Tyler Shough and or Spencer Rattler to play this year. You need to evaluate them in real-time situations over the course of a season to see if you have your franchise quarterback. Because now that you've got a first-year head coach in place, and now that you're pushing off the dock to move into a new era without Derek Carr, like, number one on the board of objectives is find your quarterback. And it may take a year. It may be a draftable situation next year. We don't know. But you've got to get closer to that decision, and you're not if you let a 35-year-old has-been quarterback go out there just because he's better today than Tyler Shough is. So that's the most important piece of this before we ever name a name. Shough and Rattler are one of those guys is the starter. I think it's Shough. But one way or another, those two guys need to be the tip of the spear. You let the backup be in meeting rooms, be on the sideline during games, and provide veteran leadership while he's cashing some of his last checks. Let the young guys play. All right, here's a look at some of the quarterbacks that Ross Jackson over at LouisianaSports.net says the Saints could take a look at. Teddy Bridgewater is first up. He's 32 years old. We just don't know if he wants to play football anymore. He retired after 2023, came back with the Lions in 2024. He's coaching in high school, apparently, down in Miami. But yeah, I would be for bringing Teddy Bridgewater in. He's a great locker room guy. He's been in New Orleans before, and I think makes a ton of sense as a guy who can come in and provide some good leadership qualities in the room. I'm for bringing Teddy Bridgewater in. Carson Wentz, I feel the same way. Guy's seen a lot. Been on an MVP trajectory, lost his job, backed up a couple different places, seen different franchises. He's 32 years old. I'm fine bringing Carson Wentz in as well, as long as he has the understanding that he's not going to be given starters reps. CJ Beathard has been in the NFL for 9 years. That is a long time, quite frankly. So I'm good with him coming in as well. He's seen a lot of systems, worn a lot of uniforms, and I don't think would be a threat to either of the guys as a potential starter. Aaron Rodgers' name came up here in Ross's piece. No thank you. No interest whatsoever. Bad locker room, maybe bad player. We don't really know. But a guy that definitely is going to want to start and would be way more trouble than good. No thank you with Aaron Rodgers. I think it was the right thing to do for the Jets to make that move with a really good defense and a team they thought could potentially be a threat to win a division and make a run in the playoffs, I thought it was the right thing for the Jets to do. It's not even close to the right thing for the Saints to do. Hard pass on Aaron Rodgers. No thank you. Ben DiNucci is a guy the Saints had let him go earlier this offseason. He and Kellen Moore were with the Dallas Cowboys, so there's a relationship there. I would be fine with that as well. He's not as seasoned as Bridgewater and as Wentz and as Beathard. I think those guys have a little bit more wisdom, but I don't know much else about Ben DiNucci other than he started a couple games for Dallas and he was with the Saints briefly. That one I have less of a take on. I'm hard in on Bridgewater, hard in on Wentz. I'm good with Beathard. I'm way out on Rodgers. Ben DiNucci, I'm just kind of like, whatever. I don't know what benefit you would get from bringing him in. And then Ross highlights a potential situation where maybe they could trade for Tanner McKee. McKee was with Kellen Moore and the Eagles over the weekend. He played late over the weekend, over last year. He played late with the Eagles, was 30 of 45, 323 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks for Kellen Moore. But it would require a trade. And I'm not parting with an asset to go get a backup quarterback. Assets for this team are precious. Draft picks are precious. Young players are precious. I'm not parting with an asset to bring something that doesn't help the team in a significant way. Because again, I'm not trying to get a starting quarterback to win as many games as possible this year. I'm trying to bring somebody in to help develop the young players. And there are, generally speaking, a handful of guys who are happy to come in and do that. You stay in the league, stay relevant, you stay cashing a check, you get another year added to your pension on the back end. You can find some guys that are willing to do it. Tanner McKee's 25 years old. He's younger than Tyler Shook. So, no, I'm out on that decision as well. I think that it's imperative that the Saints go get a veteran. It's also imperative they keep assets. So to me, as I look at this list, yes on Bridgewater if he wants to play football. Yes on Wentz, even though there's not much left in his tank. Fine with Beathard. Rodgers is a hard no for me. DiNucci, don't see the upside on that. McKee, hard no, because I don't want to part with any assets there. It sounds like Teddy Bridgewater may have closed the door on football. So to me, the more likely options are Carson Wentz and CJ Beathard. If you convince one of those guys to come in, I say that's a good thing to do. You need some mentorship. And I know that Kellen Moore is going to be very hands-on with the quarterbacks. That's his baby. That's his position. That's his background. So that's a different deal than having Dennis Allen in the head coaching chair. So that's a good thing too. But I trust Kellen Moore to make good decisions with that position. He's seen a lot, handled a lot of different guys, a lot of different personalities, and had a lot of success really anywhere he's gone to develop quarterbacks and call plays. So this is something that I would expect to happen over the course of the next few weeks. So the Saints would engage and figure that part of it out. I don't know how long the Saints have known Derek Carr wouldn't be there. So they could have known about this for 6-8 weeks and been a little bit proactive, and something comes up pretty quickly. Maybe this is something that caught them a little bit off guard with the timing of it, and they've got to kind of pivot and redirect to go get a veteran quarterback. But in any event, any of these guys are better to have on board than Derek Carr to me, because I just don't sense that a guy who did not meet with the coach once he was named the new head coach and wasn't around for Super Bowl week and has kind of been MIA all offseason when there's been a lot of rumors swirling around him. I don't get the sense that's a guy who was going to be real gung-ho to go in there and work with young quarterbacks off to the side after practice, in game planning, that kind of thing. I think you need to specifically go out with that in mind and prioritize that, communicate it effectively to the prospective guy that's going to do it, and then bring him in with the understanding of that's the role you're going to have on this team. You're going to be a mentor who may be thrust into action if there are injuries, but we need you on the practice field, in the meeting room, in game plans, and on the sideline. So hopefully Saints can get that done here over the course of the next few weeks to give Tyler Shook and Spencer Rattler all the potential help that they can in getting ready to play in this 2025 season. All right, if you're looking for our Saints content, you can always find it Hunt on Saints, wherever you find your sound, certainly on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. We certainly do appreciate it, you getting our content in front of as many eyes as possible. We got one segment to go here on this Monday. We're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Play some Take It or Leave It and get on down the road. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge Spring Cha-Ching, powered by Citizens Bank and Trust, is back. Register today at 1045ESPN.com for your chance to win $5,000 in cash. It's the Spring Cha-Ching from Citizens Bank and Trust in 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, I put a poll out right before my show started. I was curious to see how this would shake out, and the results are fascinating. There's still time to vote as well, so if you want to toss your name in the hat, you can, at HuntPalmer88 on Twitter. But I posed the question, you have one game to win. Who are you giving the ball to, Ianson or Anderson? And I have 467 votes so far on this poll. So pretty reasonable sample size there. It's not massive, but it's not like 9 votes. It's 467 votes. 51% Ianson, 49% Anderson. And that to me is ideal. Like, that's exactly what you want. Because both guys are throwing the ball like an ace, and there's really not an appreciable difference. So what Jay Johnson's going to have the opportunity to do is use those guys in a spot that he sees fit, with a matchup that he sees fit. I'm not talking about this weekend against South Carolina. I'm talking about in the NCAA tournament. Because if you get to Omaha and there's a team across from you that's got 7 lefties, or their best 3 hitters are left-handed, maybe Cade Anderson's a better matchup for that. I realize Anderson's gotten hit by lefties a little bit this year, but you see what I'm working with. You get a very right-handed team. Maybe there's a team that you see in your regional that's got 8 right-handed hitters. Well, if you've got an option of which guy to pitch, wouldn't you rather throw Ianson there? Maybe he just keeps the order the same and he just throws Anderson on Friday and Ianson on Saturday just because. But it's nice to have options, and LSU certainly has that. If you missed earlier in the show, I was talking about how I feel like LSU has proven itself to be among the best teams in the country. I didn't say they are the best. I didn't say their best is the best. I didn't say they're playing the best. I do realize they lost a series in College Station over the last week. But just, I've seen enough now. It's a representative sample size to go, okay, I've seen what everybody else in the country's done. I've seen what LSU does. LSU's got as good a chance as anybody. And at this point in the calendar, like, that's really all you can hope for. Doesn't even mean you're going to win your own regional, but I think LSU is certainly good enough to do this whole deal. And one of the biggest reasons for that is Anderson and Ianson at the front of the rotation and the matchup issues they produce, and the length they're giving LSU, the strikeout dominance they're giving LSU against some of the best lineups in the country, no less. It's a great, and I use air quotes because it's not even a problem, great problem to have, to not know exactly which guy is your ace. And when you get nearly 500 people to vote and you're talking about splitting it right down the middle, 51-49, that's wild. And I like it. It's good stuff. Beck, if I made you the head coach and you had one game to win, would you go with Anderson or Ianson?
I would go with Anderson, but I can't fault anyone that goes for Ianson either, just because of how amazing he's been over this past month. And it's to me right now, I don't think either of them is at a better. I don't think either. I think they're equal right now in terms of the way that they've been pitching. So I can't fault you going either way, but I'll take Anderson just because he's left-handed, so he's going to have probably some better matchups, maybe. And more lineups you're going to face often than not. So I'll take Anderson.
I would too, but it's real close, and I feel good with either one of those guys on the bump. I talked about this earlier today. This is not going to happen, but I would hold them to their normal rest this weekend, and I would start someone like Connor Ware or somebody else on Thursday this weekend just to keep those guys on normal schedule. Not going to happen, but that's what I would do. All 3 of these games count the same. There's no ace from South Carolina that you have to worry about matching up with. They're all the same, so I wouldn't force the issue. I expect that Jay will. That's just kind of been his MMO, that even when you had short weeks, they've thrown those guys.
Auburn switched their rotation up, I think,
did,
right?
Yeah. They did not throw Sam Dutton on Thursday. It didn't seem to matter because they beat South Carolina by 1 billion.
Yes. And that second game was just the pitcher throwing to first there.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I don't like it. It was bad. South Carolina's not good. All right, let's play some Take It or Leave It.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
All right, so pretty big news here with NBC. Of course, they will be taking over NBA coverage starting next season. But they announced today that the GOAT, Michael Jordan, will be a special contributor to the NBA coverage beginning this fall. Is Airness joining NBC? Take it or leave it?
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
Worth a shot. I don't know how that's going to go.
I don't either,
When
but
I hear Michael Jordan talk about basketball, it's usually very condescending to everybody else. And look, he's the best that ever lived. So that's a little bit natural, but he's got that supreme confidence that comes with an ego. And it's the, talking about Gary Payton, I had no problem with the glove. And and I wonder how it'll come across as far as him analyzing the game. Some guys are really good at it. Some guys just aren't. I'm curious, but I will say this. It's definitely worth a shot.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you're going to get people are going to watch because they want to see what Michael Jordan is going to say, especially about the NBA today. We don't really get too much from him in terms of commentary with the league as it is of right now. So there's going to be it's a no-brainer move for NBC to try to get him. So and also interesting to see how much he'll really be on there. Special contributor is an interesting title. But anyways, we'll move on. Your LSU baseball Tigers are the unanimous #1 team in the country, according to every major media outlet. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
It's like I've said in 3 different segments of this show now. I think LSU is as good as anybody. I have some things that I wish were better. There are some issues, and they've had some weekends where the offense has not shown up. They're not perfect. They're not as good as the 23 team, but they're good enough if they play well, and that's half the battle.
All right, next one here. Sources are reporting that Bucks superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo is open to exploring other options outside of staying in Milwaukee, i.e. a trade potentially.
Yeah.
One of the teams that could be a possibility, the San Antonio Spurs. One of the names mentioned, Giannis and Wemby. Take it or leave it.
I mean, that's some alien stuff.
Yeah.
I will take that. That would be wild to look at.
It would be.
I haven't watched a ton of Wembanyama. I've seen a ton of Giannis. He's been around a lot longer. I haven't watched, but do they kind of play the same? No,
they don't.
Wemby shoots a lot of threes.
Yeah, he shoots a lot. He's more of an outside player.
Yeah. So that part of it worked. But I mean, those two guys just getting off the bus are and it's
combined 14 feet tall.
Yeah, I mean, like LeBron said that Victor Wembanyama, if he played in the 50s, would have scored 100 a game, and I can't disprove that. I mean,
that's what Will Chamberlain did.
Yeah, you look at Bob Cousy out there dribbling the ball real low below his knee, and you look at Wembanyama taking one step from half court and dunking it. It's just a different world. So those two guys on the court together, if that happens, I might have to get out of the blender and see that.
Yes, absolutely. All right, last one here. We're about a quarter of the way through the MLB season, Hunt.
Yes.
The Cubs only 1 game ahead. They've scuffled a little bit late. 1 game ahead of the hated St. Louis Cardinals. This is going to be a competitive central between the Cubs and the Cardinals. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. The Cardinals stink.
Leave it alone.
They've won 8 in a row. They're not going to keep that up. Every time I talk about the Cardinals, I get a couple of messages on Twitter and Facebook from some angry Cardinals fans. That team stinks. They're not going to the playoff. They're not going to be good. They didn't even try in the offseason. They're rebuilding things. So they're not going to hang with the Cubs, who, by the way, are not playing with their best 2 pitchers. One of them is not coming back this year, so they got to do some work from that perspective. But Cubs leaking a little bit of oil, but the schedule gets a little easier. So I look forward to that. All right, that's it for Monday. Our Monday show is brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. You missed any of it, catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. Matt's going to drive you home from 3 to 6. I'm just going to guess he's not going to say a lot of positive things about Derek Carr. Remains to be seen, though. He's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.